In J.R.R. Tolkien's rich world of Middle-earth, few materials are as fabled as mithril. This rare and precious metal was light as a feather, yet stronger than steel, and it played a critical role in shaping the lore of the elves, dwarves, and men. But why weren't more weapons made from mithril, and what happened to the dwindling supply? In this video, we'll explore the history, significance, and mystery surrounding mithril, delving into why its use was so limited and where it ultimately disappeared. Mithril, also known as Moria silver or true silver, was a rare and remarkable metal that originated from the deep mines of Kazad Dum, the great dwarven kingdom beneath the misty mountains. The dwarves of Kazad Dum first discovered mithril during their deep delvings, and it became their most treasured resource. Unlike anything else in Middle-earth, mithril was incredibly light, stronger than steel, and did not tarnish with age. Its appearance was radiant and silver-like, which made it even more valuable to the elves, who appreciated its beauty as much as its strength. The discovery of mithril turned Kazad Dum into one of the most powerful and prosperous realms in all of Middle-earth. The dwarves' skill in mining and craftsmanship allowed them to extract mithril and fashion it into priceless objects of beauty and practicality. The elves, being great smiths themselves, were particularly fond of mithril and used it to create intricate designs for armor, jewelry, and other precious items. The rarity of the metal, however, limited its availability to only the wealthiest and most powerful in Middle-earth, making it an object of envy for those who could not afford it. Mithril's rarity stemmed from its limited source. Unlike iron or gold, which could be found in many parts of Middle-earth, mithril was unique to Kazad Dum. Its deep veins ran far beneath the earth, and extracting it was a dangerous task. Over time, as the dwarves mined deeper and deeper in their quest for more mithril, they awoke a terrible foe, the Balrog, a creature of shadow and flame. This catastrophe led to the abandonment of Kazad Dum, later known as Moria, and the primary source of mithril was lost. While mithril's value came from its strength and beauty, its true worth was found in its scarcity. Without access to the deep mines of Kazad Dum, the flow of mithril into the world virtually ceased. The remaining pieces of mithril that had already been forged into weapons, armor, and jewelry became priceless relics of a forgotten age. Though mithril was prized by all, there were several key reasons why it was not widely used, particularly in the creation of weapons and armor. One of the most significant reasons was its extreme rarity. Even during the height of Kazad Dum's prosperity, the supply of mithril was limited. Unlike iron or steel, which could be found and forged in many places, mithril came only from the deep mines of Moria. As a result, only a select few individuals or cultures could afford to possess it. Another major reason mithril was not more widely used was the difficulty in mining it. The dwarves of Kazad Dum, renowned for their unparalleled skill in mining and metalwork, faced increasing challenges as they delved deeper into the mountains in search of mithril. As they descended further into the depths, they encountered more dangerous conditions, from collapses in the mines to hostile creatures that lived in the darkness. Mining mithril was not only a physically arduous task, but it was also a perilous one. After the awakening of the Balrog and the fall of Kazad Dum, the supply of mithril was cut off entirely. No other sources of mithril were ever found, and no other culture possessed the mining expertise of the dwarves of Moria. As a result, mithril became a lost treasure, an element of legend rather than practicality. Whatever mithril existed in Middle-earth was carefully guarded and passed down through generations, often as heirlooms or artifacts of great historical significance. Even if one could acquire mithril, another challenge was the difficulty of working with it. Though it was lightweight and strong, mithril required exceptional skill to forge into usable forms. Only the most skilled smiths, such as the dwarves or the elves, had the knowledge and expertise to shape mithril into weapons or armor. This further limited its use, as the process of crafting mithril items was laborious and often reserved for only the most important works. There were, however, a few legendary items made of mithril that have survived the ages and become icons of Tolkien's lore. Perhaps the most famous example is Frodo's mithril shirt, a gift from Bilbo Baggins that saved Frodo's life during the journey to destroy the One Ring. This mail shirt, made of intricately woven mithril links, was light enough to be worn comfortably under clothing, but strong enough to protect against the sharpest blades and arrows. Its unmatched quality and craftsmanship made it an invaluable piece of armor, not just for its protective qualities, but for its historical significance, having once belonged to the dwarves of Erebor. Another notable example of mithril craftsmanship was the Gates of Moria, which were embedded with Ithildin, a magical substance that shone only under the light of the moon or stars. These doors were both a practical defense and a symbol of the ancient bond between the elves and dwarves. Mithril was also said to be used in the crafting of Nenya, the Ring of Water, which was worn by Galadriel. This ring, one of the 3 rings of power, was made with mithril, and its power was linked to the preservation and protection of Lothlorien. The armor and weapons made from mithril were not just physical objects, but symbols of the height of craftsmanship in Middle-earth. Because of its rarity, those who possessed mithril items were often viewed with a sense of awe or reverence. To own a mithril artifact meant to hold a piece of history, to carry with you the legacy of the ancient dwarves who mined it and the elves who shaped it. The scarcity of mithril, combined with its unmatched properties, made it a prized possession for kings, warriors, and smiths. Yet despite its incredible strength and beauty, the loss of Kazad Dum ensured that it would never become a widely used material in Middle-earth. The few pieces that remained, like Frodo's shirt and the Gates of Moria, stood as relics of a bygone era, cherished not only for their practical value, but for their connection to a world that had long since faded into legend. The decline of mithril in Middle-earth is closely tied to the dramatic fall of Kazad Dum, once the greatest of dwarven realms, and the growing darkness that spread over the land. Mithril's availability dwindled rapidly due to both historical and political events that shaped the course of the Third Age and beyond. The material, once extracted from the deep veins beneath the misty mountains, became almost entirely inaccessible, transforming from a rare but somewhat obtainable resource into a near-mythical relic of a bygone age. This shift marked the slow but inevitable disappearance of mithril from the world, leaving only a handful of items as reminders of its glory. At the heart of this decline was the Balrog of Morgoth, also known as Durin's Bane. The dwarves, driven by their desire to extract more and more mithril, dug deeper than they ever had before. Unbeknownst to them, their deep delvings eventually awoke the Balrog, a powerful servant of Morgoth that had lain dormant since the end of the First Age. The Balrog, a being of shadow and fire, unleashed destruction upon the dwarves, killing their king, Durin Sixth, and driving the entire population of Kazad Dum into exile. Without the dwarves to maintain the mines, Kazad Dum fell into ruin and became known as Moria, a dark and haunted place feared by all who ventured near. The loss of Kazad Dum marked the end of mithril mining. No other place in Middle-earth had the same deposits of mithril, and no other group had the same mining expertise as the dwarves. This meant that the once thriving source of the precious metal was effectively gone, and what remained above ground became even more valuable. Those who had already acquired mithril, whether in the form of weapons, armor, or other items, were now the guardians of treasures that could not be replaced. These artifacts were passed down through generations, their worth growing with each retelling of their origins. The loss of Kazad Dum also had a profound impact on the political landscape of Middle-earth. The dwarves, who had once been a major power in the region, were scattered across the land. Some settled in the Lonely Mountain, Erebor, others in the Blue Mountains or the Iron Hills, but none of these new settlements ever rivaled the glory of Kazad Dum. The destruction of their greatest kingdom weakened the dwarves as a political and military force, and with their diminished influence came a diminished ability to control or trade mithril. The metal, once a symbol of dwarven craftsmanship and wealth, became something that only existed in memory and legend. In the aftermath of Kazad Dum's fall, the world became more dangerous and unstable. Sauron, the Dark Lord, had begun to reassert his power from Mordor, and the free peoples of Middle-earth found themselves increasingly threatened by his growing influence. In this time of turmoil, the remaining stocks of Mithril were either hidden away or lost to history. Those who possessed Mithril items were often reluctant to use them, knowing they could not be replaced if damaged or destroyed. This meant that many Mithril artifacts became ceremonial or symbolic, rather than practical. The spread of darkness across Middle-earth also brought about an increased sense of isolation among the various peoples. The dwarves retreated further into their mountain strongholds, the elves withdrew to their hidden realms, and men, especially those of Gondor and Rohan, found themselves preoccupied with the defense of their kingdoms. In such a fractured world, trade and communication between races diminished, making it even harder for the few remaining pieces of Mithril to be shared or distributed. Mithril became a treasure hoarded by those who had it, kept out of sight for fear of attracting unwanted attention from enemies or thieves. Another factor contributing to the decline of Mithril was the growing importance of the One Ring and the wars that ensued as a result of Sauron's quest to reclaim it. As the forces of darkness gained strength, battles were fought across Middle-earth, and many ancient treasures, including Mithril artifacts, were lost in the chaos. The great kingdoms of men, such as Arnor and Gondor, suffered devastating losses, and their once great treasuries were plundered or destroyed. Many ancient relics, including weapons and armor made of Mithril, were lost forever during these wars, either buried in forgotten tombs or taken as spoils by enemies. By the time of the War of the Ring, Mithril had become so rare that it was spoken of only in tales and legends. The dwarves who survived in the mountains of Erebor and the Iron Hills had little to no access to the metal, and even the elves, who had once prized it for their works of art and war, had long since moved on to other materials. The few remaining Mithril items, like Frodo's mail shirt, were seen as priceless heirlooms from an age long past. Mithril had, in essence, become a symbol of a lost era, a time when the world was less divided and the great kingdoms still stood strong. The decline of Mithril also symbolized the fading of magic and wonder from Middle-earth. Just as the elves were slowly leaving for the Undying Lands and the power of the Rings of Power was waning, so too did Mithril, with its near-magical properties, fade from the world. As the Third Age drew to a close, Middle-earth became a more mundane place, where the great works of the past were remembered but no longer replicated. Mithril, along with many other legendary materials and creatures, became part of a mythic past that the people of Middle-earth could only look back upon with longing. In the end, the fate of Mithril reflects the overall theme of decline and loss that runs throughout The Lord of the Rings. The world of Middle-earth, once filled with magic, power, and beauty, was slowly fading, and Mithril, as one of the most extraordinary materials in that world, was fading with it. The loss of Kazad Dum, the spread of darkness, and the wars of the Third Age all contributed to the disappearance of Mithril from the everyday lives of the peoples of Middle-earth. What little remained was preserved in the hands of a few, not as something to be used, but as a memory of what once was. As the centuries passed in Middle-earth, the question of what happened to the last remnants of Mithril became one of mystery and legend. Mithril, a material so rare and precious, virtually vanished from the world by the end of the Third Age, but hints of its presence lingered in the hands of a few and within the secret vaults of certain kingdoms. Yet the ultimate fate of Mithril raises intriguing questions. Where did it all go? Who held on to the last remnants of this once abundant metal? And why did it never resurface in significant amounts? To answer this, we must begin by looking at those who historically possessed Mithril. As the chief miners and craftsmen of the metal, the dwarves of Kazad Dum had initially held the greatest reserves. However, with the fall of Moria and the Balrog's reign of terror driving them into exile, the mithril in their stores was either lost in the dark tunnels of the abandoned city or taken with the surviving dwarves to their new homes. Most notably, the dwarves who fled to Erebor under the Lonely Mountain likely brought some amount of mithril with them, where it would have been passed down through generations of kings. While Erebor was famously plundered by Smaug the dragon, it is possible that some mithril artifacts survived, hidden away in secret dwarven vaults that even the dragon could not find. The dwarves of the Iron Hills may have also retained some of the mithril they had acquired before the fall of Kazad Dum, though much of it would have been used sparingly, given its irreplaceable nature. As the dwarves became increasingly isolated in their mountain strongholds, they guarded their remaining treasures, including mithril, with great care. However, without the ability to mine more, even these reserves would have eventually dwindled. For the elves, mithril held a more symbolic and aesthetic value. One of the most famous examples of mithril in elven possession was the ring Nenya, borne by Galadriel. Crafted with mithril, Nenya was one of the 3 elven rings of power, and its beauty and strength were legendary. Though the power of the elven rings waned after the destruction of the One Ring, Galadriel and other elves carried their mithril treasures with them to the Undying Lands at the end of the Third Age. Much of the mithril that the elves had crafted into beautiful and timeless artifacts, including jewelry and weapons, would have left Middle-earth along with its bearers, never to be seen again by the mortal inhabitants of the world. Another significant source of mithril artifacts lies in the vaults of Gondor, particularly in its capital, Minas Tirith. As one of the greatest realms of men, Gondor's leaders would have collected rare treasures from across Middle-earth, either through trade, gifts, or conquest. It is likely that mithril items, especially armor or ceremonial pieces, were kept within the city's deep storerooms and treasuries. However, over the centuries, Gondor faced many wars and internal strife. During the reign of the Stewards, Gondor's power waned, and many of its treasures were likely lost or forgotten. While some mithril may have remained, much of it would have been buried in Gondor's tumultuous history, either lost to thieves or hidden in vaults that only a select few would know of. Among the few individuals known to possess mithril in the later Third Age, Bilbo Baggins stands out as one of the most significant. The mithril coat he passed down to Frodo became a key part of the Fellowship of the Ring's journey, protecting Frodo from potentially fatal blows. The coat itself, a priceless relic of the dwarves, was worth more than the entire Shire, according to Gandalf. After the War of the Ring, Frodo, who survived numerous deadly encounters thanks to this armor, left Middle-earth for the Undying Lands. The mithril coat likely accompanied him, further diminishing the already small amount of mithril left in the mortal world. What little mithril remained in Middle-earth after the end of the Third Age was scarce and scattered, likely held by a few individuals or kept in hidden places. Some of it may have been lost entirely in the ruins of fallen kingdoms or forgotten cities. The deep mines of Kazad Dum, where the last great reserves of mithril had once been, were still occupied by Durin's Bane until Gandalf defeated the creature during the events of the Lord of the Rings. However, the darkness that lingered in Moria, along with the great dangers of the deep tunnels, meant that no one dared return to mine the veins of mithril that likely still remained beneath the misty mountains. Even after the defeat of Sauron, Moria remained a cursed and haunted place, deterring any attempt to reclaim its treasures. In the Fourth Age, as men rose to dominance and the time of the elves and dwarves waned, the remaining pieces of mithril likely passed into legend. The reign of King Aragorn Elessar marked a time of peace and restoration, but even his kingdom, with all its ancient wisdom, would not have had the means to recover the lost mithril of the past. The few surviving artifacts of mithril would have been regarded as ancient relics, perhaps even more valued for their history than their material worth. Whether hidden in the vaults of Gondor, the depths of Erebor, or scattered in forgotten ruins, the last of the Mithril likely became lost to time, buried under the weight of history. It is possible that small deposits of Mithril still exist, deep in the earth or in long-forgotten places. Yet, without the expertise of the dwarves of Kazad Dum and the will to explore the dangerous depths where it could be found, these reserves remain untapped. The legends of Mithril persist in the stories passed down by men, elves and dwarves, but the metal itself has largely disappeared from the world. In this way, Mithril reflects the larger theme of decline and fading that permeates Middle-earth, a once great resource, full of beauty and power, that has gradually passed out of reach, leaving only memories of what once was. The fate of Mithril, like so many aspects of Middle-earth, is tied to the broader shifts in the world. As the magical and mythical aspects of the world faded with the departure of the elves and the diminishing of the dwarves, Mithril became one more lost relic of an age gone by. Its remaining pieces were scattered across Middle-earth, hoarded by a few, or left to gather dust in forgotten corners, no longer a vital resource, but a remnant of a glorious and magical past.